Got that right. Mayor got that done. Yeah. Just doubts. I mean, I'll be honest. I was.
You always have your doubts.
I know.
Must be 7 o'clock.
They're scared of the gavel.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, is it 7 p.m.?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. 17, it's actually 1900 p.m. 1900.
1900.
All right, military hours, 1900, 7 p.m. in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That is just, average track 12.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, we have a jam-packed agenda this evening. We're going to start with some proclamations and certificates. Looks like we have a whole lot of Eagle Scouts here this evening. So I'm going to come out here and I'm going to read the proclamation and give out these nice certificates from the city to our Eagle Scouts.
We should have made him wait to the end.
No, that'd be cruel and unusual punishment.
I know.
All right. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America have existed for 109 years, creating a strong foundation of leadership, service, and community for millions of America's youth. Since its inception, however, only 4% of all Boy Scouts in the nation annually earn the rank of Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank in scouting. And whereas since March 25th, 2018, 17 Scouts in Troops 88 and 888 have been recognized by the Boy Scouts of America for successfully completing all requirements for scouting's highest rank. That's a much higher than the average percentage, so I think those kids deserve, or those young men, I should say, deserve a round of applause for that. And whereas we are gathered here on this occasion as friends, family, and neighbors of these Scouts to support them on their attainment of rank of Eagle Scout and to recognize the faithful and steady path taken within the Scouting organization, and now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby recognize and congratulate these Scouts for attaining the rank of Eagle Scout and ask that the community join in celebrating them for this outstanding accomplishment and extending to them our deepest appreciation for all their dedicated work and wishing them the best in all their future endeavors. So as I call your name forward, please come forward, and I have... I'm sorry?
And stay for a picture?
Yes, stay for a picture. Sharon wants all the picture of all Eagle Scouts that are here. Please come forward and just kind of line up here for the picture. And please hold your applause till the end. There's a lot of Scouts we got to recognize here. Okay, from Troop 888, we have 8 Scouts, starting with Caden Armstrong. Congratulations. Connor Burrows. Oh, please stay up here for the... Let's see, all your smiling faces. Congratulations, Connor. There you go. Peyton Crane. Peyton cannot be with us this evening. We'll make sure that we get this to him. Riley Diedrich. And I hope that I'm pronouncing all these names correctly. Okay. Is Ryan here? He's not. Okay. Jake Kessler. Congratulations. Conrad Laszowski. Did I say that right?
No. It's close.
What is it? Laszowski. You know, I have a, that's a Polish name, right? German. Okay. I've got, I just came from Germany. I should know this. All right, Nate Sawchuk. Or is it Sawchuk? Sawchuk. All right. There you go, Nate. There.
Next time you'll get her early.
Congratulations. Zane Stutzman. I know I said that right. He's not here today. Thank you. It's Stutzman? You know, I'll get
Just say to Smith and you're good, right?
Let the record show that I mispronounced 3 straight names. And now we're going to Troop 88 with 9 Eagle Scouts. I guess 88's got to up their game next year or something. Logan Anderson, not here. Oh, darn. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I hope I get this right. Robbie Antoszewski. Antoszewski. My goodness, I'm dying here. Councilman Gogorczyk, you could help me out with some of this, right?
I decline.
Oh, okay. Thank goodness.
Just throw a first name out
Colby
there.
Butch. Oh, darn it. Levi Foley. You're accepting for Levi?
Yeah, my son passed away.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, please. Spencer Clausen.
He's not here.
Christian Neff. Thank you. Congratulations. Sean Nutt. If you say it's mute, I'm going to just die. It's not that bad. Oh, thank you. There you go. And Jacob Riggs. I think we'll have one more. Jacob. And one more Jacob. Jacob Sylvia.
Still not.
I didn't get prepped well for this. No, all of this on me. Congratulations, everybody. Give them a round of applause. And please, you can line up in 2 lines, maybe have the short one in the front. And I'll squeeze in here for pictures.
Not that short.
Taller ones in the back.
Wow.
I need to see faces. They never wants to picture boys.
Thank you.
What are you guys leaving for? What? It's time to stay. Come on. Yeah. Bye, gentlemen.
Good job on the proclamations.
Yeah, good job on the proclamations. I tell you, if you can't have a sense of humor at these things, then you can't live, you know. Well, thank you very much to the Eagle Scouts who came this evening. It is a tremendous accomplishment for so many Eagle Scouts to come out of 2 troops. And I think all of our community, not just them and their families, but all of us should be proud of having such upstanding young men in our community. So thanks again. Next on the agenda is a end-of-year financial report presentation from our Finance Director, Matt Wolf. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City Council approved its first biennial budget last August. And even though the 2019 and 2020 budgets are set, it is an important part of the priority-based budgeting cycle to monitor results and adjust as necessary. So tonight I'll present the unaudited and financial report for 2018, provide a general overview of the financial health of the city. What we'll be comparing in this presentation is basically our actual results for 2018 versus our estimate, or also called revised budget, for 2018. The general fund is our main operating fund. And the revenues came in greater than the estimate by 2.6%, or $327,000. Expenditures are less than the estimate by 1.8%, or $237,000. So the overall fund balance increased from an estimate 26% to 30%. And approximately every 1% is about $135,000. This slide goes over kind of the details of our revenue. As you can see, property tax and sales tax are kind of right on point. Our franchise tax is a little bit down, 10%. That's a continued trend that we've been having over the years. Building permits were down 5.8% compared to the estimate. But grants are up 41%, or $40,000. Charges for services are up 136%, or $179,000. The main reason for that is that includes our origination fee for our RBs and also our funding agreement for development projects. Recreation revenues are up 7.8%, or $66,000. Inspection, zoning, and subdivisions, basically fees related to those, are up 328%, or $59,000, mainly due to demand. Court fines are down 10%, or $43,000. Interest earnings are up 157,000.8, or 157%. Then it's also up 39,000. And this is a trend we've been seeing where interest earnings keep going up every year. And the finance department will continue to invest idle funds to maintain and increase investment earnings. So once again, general fund expenditures are 1.7% less than estimate. So generally, cities try to get within 5% for their estimates. I want to point out the excellent fiscal services staff we have in getting our estimates so accurate. You'll see throughout this presentation that, especially for operations, we're within that kind of range, except for when capital projects get involved. Sometimes those get delayed. But for general fund, we had a $97,000 favorable finding in the police department for savings in vehicles and niche. If you remember, niche was a $70,000 project originally for 2018. We didn't do that, and then the money went back into fund balance, but then you've already reallocated it this year for the fiber for the new Justice Center. Public Works had a favorable finding of $276,000. Basically, the savings came in salaries and engineering costs for ADA compliance and transportation master plan. Parks had a favorable finding of $90,000, savings in salaries, and then building and grounds. The electric fund had a favorable 2.7% increase in revenue for $468,000. Expenses were unfavorable at 1.4%, or $217,000. Both of these are actually primarily due to the Dogwood project. It's a new project. It's pretty complex. So the expenditures came in higher than we originally anticipated, and the revenues did too. There was also some other capital outlay savings in the electric fund related to development projects that either didn't happen or got delayed. So the overall fund balance was increased from 67% to 68%, which actually means it went from 10.8 million to 11 million. And then there's also 3.1 million in the electric capital reserve fund. The water fund increased in revenues 2.1%, or 132,000. Expenses increased, or actually had a favorable in expenses, where it came in less at 20.4%, or 1.3. This is kind of an oddity for two reasons. There's some capital projects that were delayed, primarily the repair outside walls of the contact well and clear well, then also the loop feed for St. John's. Then other projects came in lower than expected, the SCADA system upgrades and the control valve at 183rd Street Tower. And then we also had a change in how we recorded bulk water. For example, we had 561,000 in expenses for that, but instead of recording it in 2018 for 2019 bulk water, we actually pushed it back to January, which is the year that we're actually paying for that. So it makes 2018 end of year fund balance high, but then we paid it right back in the beginning of 2019. So in dollars, the fund balance went up 1.2 million, and basically the end of year fund balance is 4.2 million. For the wastewater fund, revenues were down 28.2% and expenses up 27.6%. Once again, this is due to primarily a single project, the lift station's storage tank. We were originally planning to issue debt for that last year, so we didn't have those bond proceeds coming in, and we didn't have the project expenses either, but both those are planning to occur in 2019. So the fund balance basically increased from an estimate of 12% up to 15%. In dollars, the fund balance went up 69,000, and then a year fund balance in the wastewater fund is 988,000. So kind of in summary, where we are compared to where we wanted to be is general fund, we have a target of 22 to 25%. That's because what our credit rating agencies kind of recommend is a sound fund balance to go with. We were originally planning to have 26% in the revised budget. We ended up 4% higher at 30%. And council kind of established a goal of ending 2019 with a 23%. We've had to cut some vehicles and some staff out of the budget to get to that point. But right now we're looking like we're going to hit that target. We're 4% ahead. So it's an extra $500,000 we have in the general fund. The electric fund is robust. About between the reserve and its normal fund, it's about $14 million in reserves. The water fund is currently robust, but we had some delays in capital projects, and then also we know the water treatment plant expansion is coming up. The wastewater fund is adequate for what it needs to be. And the overall fiscal condition of the city is sound.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate the comprehensive presentation as always. There are no public comments in a presentation, but does anybody from council have any questions?
Nice job, Matt, thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, absolutely. Tremendous. It's nice to know that our city, yet again, is on solid financial footing. All right. Next presentation is a presentation by our Public Works Director, Michael Kramer, on the Kansas Department of Transportation's City Connecting Link Improvement Program, a way that the state can make their dollars stretch farther by asking more of the cities. Good evening, Michael.
Evening.
Hey, short but sweet. Do I have it wrong, Michael?
What's that? That's pretty close. So, and it's been a while since I brought technology to the podium with me. So,
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
We have experts in the room.
No, he's in the
If you
next
could
one.
hit VGA. And
I can message him though.
What's his name?
there we go.
Never mind. Charles, I hope you're not listening.
And why it's not open yet, I'm not sure, but we'll get
It's a
right
cool
there.
picture though. What? That's totally real. That's the moon's that close when you're up that high. That's what makes the tides work. I read it once. Actually, I watched the video.
Okay. Hey, there we go. Again, the presentation is on the Kansas Department of Transportation City Connecting Link Improvement Program, and that's a new program. Previously, it was called CLINK, and we'll get a little bit to that. And their acronym for it is CCLIP. I don't know if they say C-CLIP or not, but anyway. So what is a connecting link? It's and part of this is for your all's benefit. I know you've seen it in the fragment memo in the packet, and part of it's for your audience out here, or my audience, I guess. But the connecting link is defined as any routing of the state highway system that's inside the city limits. And so therefore, US 56 or Main Street through Gardner is a city connecting link. And on the program, so what's the new program? It's an improvement program for connecting links. Past programs had surface preservation only. They were limited usually just a mill and overlay or patching, and they were $200,000 was the most per year that you could get per city per connecting link. This year they've raised the surface preservation category to $300,000 a year, And then they've added a couple new funds, one of which is pavement restoration. And so that allows curb and gutter and pavement and sidewalk and drainage and whatever you might need. But they do limit the funds to $1 million per state fiscal year. So what are the matching fund requirements? For our city's population, matching funds are a minimum of 10%, regardless of what type of program you're applying for. So for the pavement preservation, which we're going to talk about, your minimum would be 10% or $100,000. On the connecting link of US 56, again, it goes from where it enters the city out near Warren Street east to I-35. That is our connecting link agreement. We do have a maintenance agreement with KDOT that's, in my opinion, very favorable at this point to the city because KDOT picks up all of the routine maintenance of that roadway through the city. So the snow plowing, the pothole patching, that type of thing. And so for the new project, for the call for projects, we looked at two projects, one for 2021 and one for 2022. And again, these are KDOT fiscal year projects. And so the first project we looked at is from Sycamore to Cedar, kind of starting at Sycamore where the pavement changes, both type of pavement and condition, and going down to Cedar. And then for 2022, we looked at from, I'm sorry, that title is incorrect. It's actually from Cedar to Moonlight then. So we're going Sycamore to Cedar and then Cedar to Moonlight. The Cedar to Moonlight, the second project's a little bit shorter, but it's a lot wider, and there's a lot more driveways on the first. So a little bit of give and take on the projects. Just the cost estimate, so you can see we've actually done our homework, and we get to the page that really matters, and we have total construction cost. So Sycamore to Cedar, total construction cost, and this is complete reconstruction. This is removal of all of the curb and gutter, all of the pavement, all of the driveways, and all of the sidewalk, and replacement of the same. And the reason we're looking at the sidewalks and the driveways is really to get to a better ADA compliant sidewalk. You know, if you've walked or anything down that sidewalk, you know that when that sidewalk crosses the driveways, the slopes are bad, etc. And so we actually looked at going ahead and doing all of that work, replacing all of the drives and the sidewalk and the curb and gutter, which is failing. Obviously, everyone knows the pavement itself is failing. So total construction in 2021 is, you know, close to $1.5 million. We have preliminary engineering, which is design. We have construction engineering, which is primarily inspection. And then KDOT in there. So all of our pricing is based on 2018 KDOT quarterly bid averages. Just across the board, the pricing that we used. And then they have a set inflation amount to use in the application, which for this round of applications, they set at 4.5%. Our total project estimate for the 2021 project is almost $1,750,000, and for 2022 is, you know, $1.56 million. Our local matches then are much higher than what I had hoped they would be. But for the first year's project, it'd be close to $750,000, and for the second year project, about $560,000. we've discussed some amongst staff and with Matt Wolf regarding, how can we look at paying for these matches, and certainly from the infrastructure sales tax and the special highway fund. We believe that, with a combination of monies from both of those, that we can certainly cover the projects. And some of the financial impacts that, could be quantified but are difficult in the time frame I had and such is really, when you look at overall citizen satisfaction, drivability, damages and costs due to the current condition, lost time and travel, and potential lost business to those businesses located along that corridor. Quick Trip, for example, they rely on their convenience store. They rely on drive-by traffic stopping in there. And so, basically what we're, the point of tonight was to give you the two projects that, we'd like to move forward with applying for. We did look at other projects. We did look on to the east of Moonlight, and from Moonlight to the bridge, total project cost is about $2.8 million. And from the bridge onto Cedar Niles is about $2.6 million for a total project cost. And that's strictly, there's so much pavement. There's a lot of pavement involved. We followed up, we talked with local project some, and also the area engineer, and they really feel like this is the best near-term opportunity to get some traction on getting some roadway replacement. So that, open up for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I only had one question, and that is KDOT tends to give more favorable ratings to applications that have a higher match. That means we should be in really good stead.
Yes, they do. So we've been told that on these applications that they will give additional points for extra match. So
I was just going to say, I think we did the right thing by picking the areas we did, because those, from my estimation, are the worst ones. I mean, the over to Cedar Niles and everything's not, I mean, it's bad, but it's not near what the other direction.
They just got done putting the concrete blocks in at the bridge, the overpass. So it does look a little better there, but
I will say, I mean, since the snow began and we've started having the failures, the number one complaint to our department has been about Main Street.
Can you show that map again, the Sycamore to Cedar?
Yeah. And so Sycamore is where the pavement changes from actually seeing the concrete surfacing, and then on to the west you see the asphalt surface. And it just really, so Cedar is 300 feet or so to the west of White Drive and Quick Trip there. And so it's kind of a natural break point. I would have actually liked it to bend closer to the Quick Trip, but just due to the sheer number of drives, it was already starting to be more expensive. It is more expensive.
But this also fits in with our downtown revitalization as well. I mean,
that's what I was going to.
The downtown corridor plan really requires that we have that road redone, and then there's some beautification factors in there as well that we could incorporate into this as well.
Michael, was there any looking at the project broken up into 3 years?
Not for these two projects, and we really looked at originally, before ever looking at cost and talking to KDOT about it, and before putting pencil to paper, so to speak, we really looked at, okay, what what's a logical piece to get done. It was Sycamore to Moonlight, and then it was how do we make it happen. And right now, the call for projects is just for 2021, 2022. And beyond that, they may change to something different. But
So we know this is coming in 2 winters. Question is, how do we manage the situation, or can we manage the
Yeah.
situation? Well, I know KDOT's out there like every week now with patch crews, but every time they put down aggregate,
correct.
it comes right back out again.
So what KDOT has told me is that they do expect to come back once they have good weather and do a different type of patching, and hopefully a patching that will last,
Put the
through the
contour in there,
season.
and then they press it in, it stays better.
Yep. It's got to be warm enough for that.
And part of what's happening too is, all of the base material underneath each one of those, it's gone.
Yep.
So the slabs are starting to move, and
So Michael, if we don't do this, what's the expectation that the state will, and if so, when? Well, because the community as a whole across the state
Sure.
of Kansas is paying taxes. I think Lee and I talked about this last meeting, and I thought he brought up a good point, and I just want to bring it up again. So if we don't participate,
well, so a couple things. When I talked with KDOT local projects, I mean, they were pretty adamant that, the city connecting link inside of the city is the city's responsibility. And, this is an opportunity for them to partner with us and fund, the replacements. And so from their standpoint, it's really, that's pretty much what I've heard back from them. And in talking prior to this program coming out, and in working with the area engineer, obviously they're aware of the issues, and they've been looking for funding. And not 5 minutes after KDOT announcing this program, he sent me, hey, here's an opportunity to get some near-term funding. So,
And also take into consideration the fact that virtually every municipality with significant traffic is being overwhelmed right now with this problem. I mean, going to Overland Park or going to Lenexa, it's just it's a minefield out there on the state-owned roads.
no, our roads are nothing special compared to the
Yeah.
rest. I
Nope.
understand that.
No,
So we're looking at $1.3 million just to estimate over the next 2 years for, what, 1.5 miles, 2 miles of road?
so it's, if you'll
that's
give
about
me
right. A
just,
little more than 1.3. And I think it's just a mile.
So it's less than a mile in total length. It's about 1.8 lane miles for Sycamore to Cedar, and it's about 1.6 for Cedar to Moonlight. So it's about $1 million a mile. That's what you're looking at.
It's concrete, and it has to
And-
manage truck traffic.
And we do have it estimated as concrete, and that's something that as we move forward, we can, in design, we can look at alternatives for surfacing, whether it's asphalt or concrete. I really think with the turning movements we have along there and such, the concrete for a life cycle cost will be a lower cost.
So with a concrete and a use of concrete and understanding that it's a heavy truck traffic, which would also include a heavy or high volume residential traffic, the concrete would need to be what, about a foot thick?
Right now we've got it estimated at 10 inches, but the difference between the two we could certainly accommodate in our cost. So yeah.
Thank you.
So how do they determine responsibility?
So as far as, I mean, local projects, what they said is it's a connecting link inside the city. It's the city's responsibility, but we have, we have our maintenance agreement that sets what their responsibility is and what ours are, but that's just for the maintenance itself.
Because I mean, I would challenge that city doesn't have much industry, and so we don't have a need for truck traffic. So we're accommodating a lot of truck traffic on this road.
And we did take a look at the truck traffic, and the traffic in general on the roadway. And Main Street has about 15,000 vehicles. About 500 or so are trucks, what we would consider trucks per day. So about 3 to 5% truck traffic. But
wouldn't you say that 3 to 5% of the traffic then causes 95% of the damage to the road?
Potentially.
Or
Yeah,
more?
yeah, definitely truck traffic causes more damage than vehicles. And, as far as roadway usage, again, there's about 15,000 vehicles on this stretch of roadway. But if you go on out west, so between Gardner and Edgerton, it drops down to about 5,000 vehicles. So, most of those vehicles are, coming to and from City of Gardner. And I'm not, in saying that, I mean, responsibility, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just trying to give you
There's a lot of stuff in
information.
Gardner. I mean,
Sure.
there are semis that deliver stuff all over town. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we can't throttle 56 because it's not our street. We just get the opportunity to help pay for it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we
That's
bring
a
in more
good way
tax
to put
dollars
it.
with the fixed roads. So
And-
we can go quicker.
Yeah, I'm just arguing that maybe we don't have as big of a piece of this as the state thinks we do.
I don't know. I think there's a lot
Be a
of stuff
tough
going
argument.
on. If you watch the trucks and where they go,
Yeah.
restaurants, everything gets big trucks. So
And they do. It's one of those things
I
we
don't
gotta
know
live with it, so
of
we
a
gotta
single,
figure it
I don't know of a single business in town that takes these cargo containers.
Container
And I
trucks.
see those all day, every day.
well, yeah.
Going-
Well, yeah, that's 80,000 pounds, but I think to Rich's
Yeah.
point, just whether it's cold storage for Dairy Queen or the beer guy over at the Red Barn or,
Oh, yeah.
Those are relatively
Yeah.
light trucks, though.
they're still,
Short haul trucks. I'm talking about the long haul trucks.
they still come with a weight.
All right, well, thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Did
Yes.
you provide consensus for them to apply?
Oh,
No,
oh.
but
I
I'm
didn't
fine
know
with
that.
it.
Yeah.
Hey, I got no
Okay.
problem looking for money,
All right.
as long as it's not ours.
Well, we're gonna, some of it's gonna be
Some of
ours.
it's gonna
If
be
you
ours,
pay
but I mean,
attention,
more than
Okay.
half of it's gonna be theirs, though, or it actually is ours too, because we're paying into the
So I'm hearing consensus.
state
Yes.
fund, yes.
Yes.
If
Mark,
we
Yes,
apply
some
and
more
get
of
it,
our
are
money
we
back.
100% obligated to whatever we apply for? Can we change our plan?
I think at that point you can reject it. My hope is that we can apply for it, get it, and that, we can find ways to bring the cost in lower than
Mhm.
expected.
we're hoping
Sounds
this
good.
helps us with the
Yep.
KDOT too and the
right.
interchanges
Thank
and
you.
saying, hey, look, we're ready to, we need help here and.
Yep, more skin in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, now's the time for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Just a couple of items really quickly here. First of all, I know there's quite a few people who wish to speak this evening. I'm going to make it kind of clear if everybody's going to be coming in saying the same thing over and over again. We understand that there's a lot of sentiment about some of these items on the agenda. Please try to keep your comments short and to the point. No personal attacks, no profanity, and if you've got a lot of the same comments, it might be best to have 2 or 3 spokespeople make their comments instead of having 20 people coming up saying the same thing. So with that being said, I will open up the floor for public comment.
Okay, I promise I'll be the only one to say this today. Okay.
Bend that mic down, there you go.
And the mic, okay. First of all, thank you for having open comments. I'm Erin Louise Chapman, and I am president of the 2019 class of Gardner Edgerton project graduation.
What's your address?
What's my address?
Yeah,
I
you have
live-
to give it for the record.
1199 East Santa Fe, number 5. Okay. I'm coming here today to ask for a donation for project graduation.
We don't have any money. Did you see?
You just spent $1 million. Anyway, the reason project graduation is important to our city is because it is one of the most dangerous nights of the year for our young people that are out graduating and starting their new lives as adults. And our goal is to give a free to them party night that has no drugs, no alcohol. We give away $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of gifts to them, free food. It is at a community center that has a pool. We will do movies. It's a wonderful evening for them. The reason why we have come here today is because we are asking for $2,000 to help. We have already raised about $12,000. It costs a lot of money. We have almost 400 students that we have to accommodate food. 6,000 food right there. That's the 12,000. Food prizes. We want to make it enticing for the students to want to come and to not stay at home or go to a party and drink and drive and get in accidents. Project graduation started in 1982 in Maine when 16 seniors of the same high school died in alcohol-related accidents on graduation night. And since then, those next 36, 37 years, parents around the country have been doing project graduations to keep that tragedy from happening. And I feel very strongly, as a parent of a senior and 2 more seniors in the next couple of years, that this is worthwhile and a worthy cause for Gardner. So I would love your consideration on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you, Erin. I'll try to be nicer next time.
Mayor, would you entertain a question of Erin?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Erin, has the Board of Education or the USD supported you in any way outside of your fundraising?
They have. They have given us, we have free busing, and we get to use the school for boarding, exiting, and then we do all of our prize giveaways there at free of cost, which would usually cost close to $5,000 altogether.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You're good, thank you, Erin.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Erin. All right. Oh, Mayor and Council
Let's
budget?
let's keep her
No.
in suspense.
We can do that at council updates.
No, we're not
Right.
gonna. You
They
know
have
how
to
long
wait
that's
till the
gonna
end to
be?
find out.
Yeah, I think, can we get consensus on a donation of?
Yeah, for the record, it's $1,500 that's budgeted.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. So 1,500's been budgeted.
I
We
would
have
suggest we add
additional
another.
funds, don't we? And
Just
can
give
we-
her a 20 spot.
Well, why doesn't the rest of the council chip in the difference?
I don't make that much money.
Just a reminder, our general fund's 4% higher than we originally anticipated.
There you go.
Thank you, Matt.
So moved.
I think
That's
we
why
can
we
get-
keep them around, see?
I think we can get-
1.31 million in road costs.
Exactly.
I will be asking $2,000 from Edgerton also next week, if that helps.
Well, we can't let them give it first. I mean,
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we,
No, we can't make motions, but we can make consensus.
there you have it, sir.
So it's
Yeah.
under,
So moved. Yeah. How much?
2,000?
2,000.
Okay.
2,000, we'll just give them 2,000? All right, so we've instructed the city administrator to use her signature authority to provide Project Grab with a check for $2,000 from the city of Gardner, a word of thanks as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was a very persuasive argument.
Yes. Actually, Project Grad's been around for a while, and they've done some great work, and so it's good. All right, any other public comments?
Is it time for us to speak now or wait until it's on the agenda?
You can speak now, or you can speak at the time of the agenda item. All right. All right, not any more public comments, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a member who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Not hearing any motion to move anything from the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve the
moved.
consent agenda.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Melton, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. Committee recommendation, item number 1. Consider an ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas. Larry Powell, good evening. You'll be a busy man in the next couple of items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Yes.
So this is an item in which a rezoning has been requested from agricultural to R4, mixed density neighborhood district, concerning the addition of property to the Catholic church site on the west end of town. The site is developed with one structure, church that was constructed in 2003, and an addition built onto the main structure in 2015. And currently the site is used for religious activities. The current zoning designation, A district, is not consistent with the Gardner Main Street Corridor Plan future land use designation of medium density residential in this area, nor is the current use, and the current use is non-conforming, basically in an agricultural district. The proposed rezoning would make the property consistent with the future land use designation, considering the associated zone districts, and would create the potential to mitigate non-conforming status of the current use. The rezoning to the mixed density neighborhood district is also compatible with the existing adjacent mixed density residence uses and the public park, and is compatible with the adjacent zoning districts. The relative gain to public welfare would allow for the owner to expand the existing operation of the current site, and if the property remained zoned A district, the large assembly use would not expand. In other words, the church could not add on or build on, and would potentially have to relocate, and the proposed use would not have the proposed use would not affect the utilities, infrastructure, or public services, as it is an existing developed site. So the change in zoning district will not add any additional zoning, any industrial utility cues from the city side. Minor utility extensions are required, but will not adversely impact the infrastructure in the vicinity. The Planning Commission at their February 26, 2019 meeting held a public hearing on this item and voted unanimously to recommend approval of this application. No one spoke regarding to this item. The attachments are included in your packet. They have the ordinance, the vicinity map, the excerpt for the minutes of the February 26, 2019 Planning Commission meeting, and the suggested motion is adopted. One item that I would bring to your attention under financial impact is that in this particular case, there was a request from the church to reduce the excise tax amount because the church had previously given land to the city for road right-of-way, had not given land to the city for road right-of-way, but had paid full excise tax, and the city is now requesting road right-of-way, which we'll hear about in the next action. I just want to bring it up at this time because this says there's no financial impact, but there is a small decrease in the excise tax based on future action after this action is approved or disapproved.
Thanks, Larry. Any public comment on new business, on committee recommendation item number 1? Hearing none, questions for Mr. Powell, and I believe this is a vote of the entire governing body. So there'll be 6 votes.
That is correct.
4 to pass. Yep. All right. Any questions?
Mayor, simple majority to pass.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood you. I thought you said 4 to pass.
Yes, I said, 6 vote,
Yes,
4 to pass. Yes.
But you are a voter on this.
Correct. Okay. I'll entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance 2605, an ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Mayor Shute?
Mayor votes with the rest of the body, yes. Ordinance number 2605 passes. Committee recommendation item number 2, accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements on final plat FP-19-01 for Divine Mercy Parish.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the action taken on the final plat for FP 19-01, final plat for Divine Mercy Parish, which basically refers to the action I had referred to earlier. After review of the application, a final plat of 7.46 acres located at 555 West Main Street, and final plat dated January 30th, 2019, and a staff report dated February 26, 2019. The Planning Commission approved the application provided the following conditions are met. 1, prior to the mayor signing an approved recordable plat, excise tax shall be paid to the city. And 2, any construction plans for any utilities, infrastructure, or public facilities shall meet all technical specifications, and public improvement plans shall be submitted and approved prior to the release of the plat for recording, and recommends the governing body accept the dedication of rights-of-way and easements. So the part I want to refer to now is that when this came to the city, or excuse me, to the Planning Commission or to city staff reviewed this and looked at the future use and expansion of the highway, and staff made a recommendation to Public Works that it looked like we needed to increase the right-of-way in this area and had the opportunity to do so. The church was willing to do that, but requested that in return for that, since they had paid full excise tax at the time of the original platting and final plat, that they be given a credit for that amount of land that they were now donating to the city, since they had paid for the keeping of that land originally. And so the excise tax was refigured, and a deduction was figured in for that based on the difference between the two items, because the original excise tax was a lesser amount, 1.6 cents, excuse me, 0.16 cents per square foot, and the current excise tax is 0.20 cents. So even though we're adding some 7,000 plus square feet, the deduction would be made for the right-of-way area that would be given to the city for that, giving us a reduced excise tax in the amount of $873.64. Other than that item, the attachments included all the maps, final plat documents, and the excerpts of the minutes, and the Planning Commission packet, and the suggested motion for acceptance is adopted, is attached.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Any public comments on committee recommendation item number 2? Seeing none, questions for Larry on this item? All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on.
So moved.
Second.
Motion for Gorsuch, second Moore, that we accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements on the final plat for Divine Mercy Parish. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Committee recommendation item number 2 passes. Committee recommendation item number 3. Consider an ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas, and the associated preliminary development plan PDP-19-01 for the Waverly Plaza development. All right, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. This item has a couple of things in it that we would like to give a short presentation on prior to going through the regular material. So if we could change the slideshow over, please. So this is a rezoning and preliminary development plan. So these two items come together to you as one package, but they are two documents. The zoning application is the part that you'll be voting on. The pre-development plan is the part that is attached and goes with this because you're voting on a planned development. And a planned development in this case is one in which you have actually provided additional information provided to you from the owner and developer of the property, so that you actually have some semblance and understanding of what the long-term project would be, versus a simple rezoning of the RP3 and the CP2 to a regular C2 and R2 zoning, or excuse me, R3 zoning, which the applicant could have done instead of staying with the planned zoning. So what we have is the location of the property that's in the shaded area, and basically in May of 2005, approximately 42 acres was rezoned to RP2, Planned Unit Family Residential District, and CP2, Planned General Business District, and an associated preliminary development plan for a larger area, which is called Waverly Point, was approved. Tonight's project is called Waverly Plaza, so if I occasionally say the wrong name, forgive me, they're so close together. The district for the large area is called Waverly Point was approved. Then in 2007, a revision to the zoning from RP2 to RP3, a planned garden apartment district was made to allow for townhomes to be developed on the development plan was approved. So this is about the third development change that occurred to Waverly Point prior to the actual development of the property. And in 2014, again, revisions to the RP3 portion of the development plan was made to show the intention to create townhomes that could be sold or split with a small amount of land around each unit, which were approved as the reserve at Waverly Point. To date, the commercial property in this corner remains undeveloped, and the residential to the north and the commercial area to the one lot to the east are undeveloped. And the property to the north is now owned by the school district, and on that was originally 91 planned units which were not constructed, nor will they be, because the school owns the property and they are using it for practice fields and other educational purposes. This is the current slide showing the current zoning. The small RP3 is the zoning that is where the townhomes would be. The CP2 is the existing commercial district that was described previously, and the red and then the yellow. The remaining areas shown in white to the north again are RP3 for the school property, and to the east RP3, which is the residential area around the yellow zone. Staff facilitated a meeting on Wednesday of February 13th, 2019 at the Senior Center with the developer, the engineer, and architect of the project, and sent meeting invitations to those within 200 feet of the property boundaries. And we had about 20 people, as I recall, that night that came to that meeting. And during that meeting, they voiced their concerns, and this was the proposed new zoning that was under discussion. The CP2 is the commercial zone to the west, and the yellow zone is now the residential area that has been enlarged. So the reason for this rezoning, even though the zones are exactly the same, is because you're changing the planned use size area and the types of uses within those areas, okay? So this is the new proposed zoning configuration, and the red area again is 2, and the yellow is the RP3 multifamily. And the zoning is compatible with all the surrounding zones and is consistent with a comprehensive plan. And after public notice was posted on the subject property and concerns were voiced, we had the public hearing. Questions regarding traffic, the clubhouse, the pool location and details, apartment design and rents, waste collection, stormwater, streets, street improvements, parking, airport review, project timeline, property management, tax incentives, and potential impacts on property values were discussed. Also discussed were a couple of items brought up about the school district zoning boundaries, but we in no way affect those. Those are strictly a part of the school district, and the change in zoning has no effect on school district boundaries nor how they plan to make those boundary changes, if at any time in the future. Written comments were then received and sent to the Planning Commission meeting, which was held later, and were included in the Planning Commission packet attached. This is the proposed architect's rendering of the project. And this shows the overall development plan for the development to include a specific land use and their density, intensity, block and lot patterns. So what you see is what should be built. Building types and scale, design characteristics, and other building and site design elements that reflect the proposed character of the plan. The attached preliminary development plan has 2 distinct areas, the commercial and the multifamily, and the uses and building types are all permitted within the base zoning district, and the standards have been met regarding these issues. So there are no technical aspects of the attached building plan that are under that do not meet the city's planning requirements nor specifications. There were some deviations and departures from the standards associated from the zoning districts, and they were to be considered and were considered through the plan zoning and approved, provided that they are based on the comprehensive and well-integrated development plan of the area. 9 deviations were requested on this project, with 2 being related to accessory structures. Those would be the proposed garages on the residential portion, and 3 were related to frontage types, which has to do with the design style characteristics of the buildings as they face the streets. In relation to street types in regard to maintain continuity throughout the site, 2 related to sidewalk widths and 2 related to required parking, and staff found that the deviations that have been recommended for approval are based upon a comprehensive and well-integrated development plan for the area and with the exception of the sidewalk width, which is addressed in the conditions of approval, were all passed. On the day of the February 26th meeting, the applicant, in order to help address some public comments, offered a revised plan showing the intent to dedicate a portion of the eastern lot across North Laurel Street to the adjacent neighborhood association for open space. This space will allow for the adjacent property owners to access the rear of their existing fences and access the existing open space for the townhomes. And at the February 26, 2019 Planning Commission meeting, after holding a public hearing, the Commission recommended the governing body approve the rezoning and preliminary development plan for Waverly Plaza with the following conditions. And the plan they adopted was the plan that was offered as the revised plan, which allowed for the HOA to accept property to the east side of the clubhouse and pool if they will accept it. So it's properly introduced and approved through the Planning Commission for that to occur. You can read the 5 exceptions that were there. The governing body motion is available for you to act upon, and I have one more slide if you need it, which looks at the comprehensive coverage of the area, if that becomes a question for you to review.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate your presentation. I'll ask for public comment again. Please try to stay with the previous instructions, if you could, with regard to lots of people coming and saying the same thing. So, wait, no.
Well, just so you know, I got a note from our IT. On the microphone, stay about 6 to 9 inches away from it when you're speaking. If you get any closer, it gets feedback and nobody can hear you online.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Mayor Shue?
Yes.
I would encourage everyone to speak instead of recommending that they condense it to 2 or 3 speakers or whatnot. I appreciate that we have a time here, but I don't want it to appear like their voice is muted after they show up and want to speak.
And again, I'm not trying to do that.
Okay.
I'm not trying to do that.
I understand that. I just don't want it to appear that way.
Correct. But there was also a public hearing at the Planning Commission.
I understand.
And the whole point of the public hearing was to hear from all of the public. And one of the things that we are trying to do within the meetings to basically encourage brevity here is to give the public hearing its respect at the Planning Commission level.
That's fair.
Okay? So I did not want this to become an hour-long parade of people, because that has already happened. It happened at the Planning Commission meeting. And so I want to make sure that that's got a 5-minute limit. We'll let folks come up and speak.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Planning Commission. I apologize for my voice. I'm trying to get over a cold. My name is Tim Homburg. I'm with NSPJ Architects, 3515 West 75th Street in Prairie Village. We're the architect of record for the project that you're considering this evening. I'm just going to hit a couple high points more kind of along the architectural character of the project to kind of give you a feel. Obviously, at a preliminary development plan, you don't get to see a lot about the character of a project. We're a 58-year-old company, and we focus on all things residential. To date, we probably have designed and have constructed nearly 50,000 units of multifamily apartments. So we bring the expertise to the table that the owner, client, Mr. DeVilbiss, desired for that. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Some of the things were probably, I don't know whether you had the privilege of having this part of your packet, but we've created some renderings that kind of give you an overall scope of the project. Obviously, it was Mr. Powell has explained, the front part on the foreground is the commercial development, and then the rear ground is the multifamily. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, please. Obviously, the worst kept secret is obviously the area that we're looking at right now is the integration of the clubhouse and pool in the surrounding townhome areas. And we looked at this very carefully, and we feel that we have a position of a clubhouse and a size of clubhouse and pool area that intermingle nicely with the townhomes. Some things that we want to make note of is obviously this will not be a heated pool, so it's obviously going to be limited in time of year it will be used. Obviously, most unheated pools do not start their usage until probably late April, early May, until the water temperature can get warm enough to be able to use it, and obviously then you shut down probably sometime in the month of August, depending on how quickly it gets cool. Obviously there will be limits on the time that the pool can be used in the evening hours. And obviously, we'll recognize and be a good neighbor in that fashion. But you can kind of see here from the visual that doesn't show as well on the site plan that there is space between the surrounding townhomes and the pool structure. And obviously, the applicant is going to make a very concerted effort to work with the surrounding neighbors to create appropriate screening, and so that the mitigation of this is done to the greatest degree possible. You want to go to the next slide, please? This is kind of down at the ground level. Obviously, the townhomes adjacent are 2-story townhomes. Our clubhouse will be a 1-story structure. There will be a pool fence required by code to wrap around the pool area, but then obviously we can look at additional landscaping in those vicinities of those adjacencies. If you want to go and jump to the next slide. Again, to looking at the character, we're starting to show a little bit of the architecture of what's happening. If you want to go to the next slide, please. It probably shows it a little bit better. This here is kind of looking at one of the freestanding retail buildings. The character of the buildings are going to be very high quality. They're going to be a mixture of stone, brick, and stucco, with then wood accents and then a composition roof. There will not be any lopsiding. There will not be anything that won't be a very durable, long-lasting quality material on all these projects. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, please. Again, you're seeing a little bit more of the character of the freestanding buildings. And go and flip to the next one. This is kind of at the gateway at the west end. To the very right part of the slide is the main drive coming in from the west off Waverly, and then we kind of integrated a small tower clock element on that corner as a kind of an entry monument. Go to the next slide, please. Again, the last kind of freestanding building on the commercial side of things, and then the next slide, please. And here you're starting to also see the character of the multifamily buildings. We characterize these as manor home apartments. And the differentiation is that at the ground level of each entrance will be an enclosed, secured entrance. Even though on the upper floors it'll be open breezeway, at the ground floor we will have secure entrances. So that's an additional amenity that current renters want to have, whether it be a high-density multi-story building or a garden apartment. They want to have that security of entrance. And you can see from the character of the slides here, all the exterior materials are a combination of either brick, stone, or stucco, with lap siding, or with shutter accents, and then obviously the brackets on the tops. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, please. And again, iron railings will be at each one of the balconies, and I think that's the last slide. Right. And so what the developer wants to do is just a very high-quality development, and we'll look to any questions that come from further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, commend that individual for keeping within the 5-minute time limit. That's real close there. Anything? Yes? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Philip DeVilbus. I live at 11216 Delmar Street in Leawood, Kansas. I'm the developer with my sons of this particular property. Some of you know me, some of you don't. We have owned this property started buying it 14 years ago, closed on it 12 years ago. Before the majority, there was only 3 or 4% of Waverly Point even built. We had this vision, along with Carol Lehman, that brought us to town, on places in town that needed some development and shopping. We built the Moonlight Plaza, Moonlight Commons, Austin's Bar and Grill. People want to know how we'll take care of our property in the backsides even. Along the railroad tracks, you'll see spade dug trees and grass that's nicer than most people's front yards. If we have graffiti on any piece of our property, within 24 hours it's gone. So we have no problem with neighbors. We won't have any problem with these neighbors if they not have problems with us. What I could have built on this project and what it's zoned for, one of the items was a grocery store that the city paid for a study to see whether or not Price Chopper should be on this property right now or the new one that they're going to put over by the where the lumberyard was. I was disappointed. and the city okayed what we were going to put, an 80,000 square foot grocery store with the loading dock and garbage receptacles right to their front doors along Laurel. If it isn't for the property that I'm developing here, there's no more Laurel Street. There's no Washington Street. And probably you wouldn't have spent the money to do 175th Street in Waverly, because I've been waiting without being able to build on it because there's no storm sewers, there's just gutters, no sidewalks, no nothing. And we're bringing all of that to you. If I didn't put the grocery store with the garbage and receptacles to that was approved, we were offered a great amount of money, a lot of money, to sell it to a company out of California to put a diesel repair engine shop on the whole parcel of it, and it was zoned for it. And we could have done that if we would have wanted to. We didn't want to. This is a long-term project with us. I'm an old man. And I don't have a lot of time left, but we intend to do this project and do it to our standards, that no one else will build something in the community that's any more luxurious than this, because they won't be able to afford it. They have these bigger companies, the Blocks in the world and all the big companies. When they have many stockholders, they have to bring back a certain amount of return. We took 44 units out of this building so we could have grass, more grass, make it livable, not just parking lots and all. We've done everything that we know how to do, including the cost per square foot of this project, as the city well knows. We build what we say, and our pictures aren't near as good as the final project. I'd like your consideration in improving this, and would like to be a part of your community. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks. Good evening, Council. My name is Daniel Strom. I'm a homeowner at 720 West Shawnee Court, Gardner, Kansas. Many of you received emails both from myself and from my wife, Jessica Strom. Hopefully that name kind of rings a bell, because we've been pretty adamant in staying on top of the project. You know, at the city planning I felt like I had a pretty passionate speech, but I just kind of wanted to come here today and just kind of voice from a personal standpoint here. We're not against the growth and development of Gardner, and you know, we're actually big supporters of it. We want to see the retail, we want to see the luxury apartments. 25 other additional homeowners that, I'll call it the horseshoe around the swimming pool, have all asked me to stand up here and speak on their behalf. Our concern is not with the growth and development, it's the swimming pool. And I know that's what most of the emails and the letters and the petitions and the phone calls, and I'm sure just about everybody sitting here on the council has probably at one point or another heard of it and is probably tired of hearing about it. But that's our concern, is that, you know, it's the common courtesy that I think that should come with the development. A little bit about myself, I'm a decorated combat veteran. I know the first, you know, I know the laws and what I have fought for in America. You know, you own it, you can build on it, right? The rules to do what you want, I get that. But there comes a part of being American where there comes into courtesy. You know, and a council needs to look at just not what they can bring to the city, but protecting their citizens within it. You know, I've heard it kind of flung around, not necessarily from the council members, but the idea of sacrifice a few for the greater good. We're talking about apartments and a development, not life and death. There's got to be a resolution that we can come to that protects the citizens and allows this development to proceed. And that's what I really hope that we can come to. I don't know what that answer is. I wish I had the answer. I wish I had the group of people that could go forward and really look for that answer and move forward. But really, I just wanted to take my right as a community, you know, homeowner and come up here, voice my concerns on that, and I'll leave it to you for the rest of the night. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mary Pribble. My address is 132 North Pear Street. I am in the horseshoe, as Daniel had put it, of the pool. Will be right out my back gate. Couple concerns that I have, and a couple things that I want it noted is the architect for this project is amazing. I've heard nothing but good things about their whole company as a whole. Most of the apartments that they project on their website and promote and hoopah, they built and they designed and did all this. The pools for these projects are in the smack middle of the apartments, and the apartments are the horseshoe shape around that pool. Why they chose to do it this way is beyond me, but that's the design. So I know they have it in them to create that kind of atmosphere, and they've also marketed these apartments to be for the young millennials. Well, if you look at Mission Farms, if you look at the apartments that are being built in downtown Kansas City around the Power and Light District, Town Center in Leawood, and I know you've worked on several of those projects, that's where the pool is. People don't want to cross the street to go to their pool, to go to their clubhouse, to use their workout facilities. They've incorporated them within the apartments themselves, number one. Number two is we're going to have a hard time with our mowing contract for our green space area that are behind our townhomes in order to maintain that space. In fact, we were waiting for the last row of townhomes to be built that we were told was going to be built there to do something with that green space to make it attractive for our neighborhood, whether it was walking trails, dog park, a little park back there, whatever the case may be. So giving us another piece of that puzzle, I am not on the board, but our president will be coming up here. We are going to graciously decline your offer of that additional land, because if you've been out to visit the site, and I know several of you councilmen have, there's a big drain in the middle. And that's what they're trying to give us. No, thank you. There's draining issues back in that field. We know they are. And again, we were going to tackle that as an HOA once all the construction had been built. We're going to leave those back on their lap versus taking it on as an HOA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
My name is William McGee. I'm at 729 West Shawnee Court. I'm the president of the reserve that represents the condos there. And we have already been maintaining this area as an intention that little shoehorn piece that fits in there is, was the intention was going to be condos. And unbeknownst to us, without any reaching out, the builder went ahead and made the switch. I'm really concerned that because it's just kind of opportunistic in the sense that that piece of property was sold there and could have been placed in the apartment side of the road rather than that back side. And so the problem with it is that the continuity of the whole condo arena there is kind of split by another company that came in and bought that land. Now I understand if I have a piece of land, we have to do something with it. And we were concerned, at the time we were looking at it as townhomes there, another row there, and then also that green space. And so we really don't need the additional property that's there where the drainage is at. That doesn't really do us much good there. But plus the liability of trying to maintain that if something occurs with the drainage and all that. But what we're really concerned with is why we're not getting worked with this clubhouse and making it a green space area for the apartments. We wouldn't mind doing that, where they come over and maybe make it a dog park or something like that. So they can just kind of cross the road and do that, and then move the clubhouse in some configuration over on that side of the road to kind of limit that amount of use of that land. But it does break up the planned community that was there, and so that's why we protest this.
Any other public comment?
Hi, I am Kate Schaffert. I live at 297 North Pecan. I have a little bit different perspective. I'm in Waverly Point, probably the furthest away from the pool, the apartments. But I would ask that you not approve the rezoning, and here's why. I have two main concerns, and those are liability and safety. Excuse me. I believe putting this apartment complex next door to my subdivision will provide for additional vehicle and foot traffic by my house every day because I live adjacent to the high school property. With that being said, not everyone has malicious intent, not everyone is up to no good, but the more traffic coming by my house allows for more possibilities. It's just a statistical thing. I also believe these apartments will allow for additional people in our neighborhood park and pool area that aren't allowed. This could cause a multitude of issues. It's a liability for our HOA when non-residents of Waverly Point use the facilities without being guests of our HOA, of our homeowners. Over the past 8 years that I've lived there, we've had vandalism, assault, and drug paraphernalia, to name a few. More traffic means dealing with more issues. But because I suspect this will pass, I do have to say the pool placement. Frankly, I'm with everyone else. I find it rude. I find it rude to place a pool and entertainment area in the backyard of my friends and neighbors. We heard several responses to our concerns at the Planning Commission meeting. There were thoughts that the pool wouldn't be a nuisance that we assume it will be. Remarks were made stating that at a complex that someone used to live at, no one used the pool. It was insinuated that our concerns were maybe jumping ahead, that we were making a mountain out of a molehill, since we don't really know if the pool will be that big a deal. But here's the thing. Once the pool is built, there's no changing it. So when our concerns come to fruition about the noise and commotion occurring 66 feet from my friend's children's window, we'll say, I told you. You'll say, oops, we were wrong. And then what? Because the damage is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Wilson. I live at 132 North Pecan Street. So I did speak at the Planning Commission, and I did bring up some concerns at that point, and I just wanted to bring them to your attention as well. So a couple of facts. This apartment complex is 144 units, and they've only allowed for 1.5 parking spots per unit. These are multiple bedrooms in these units. So I see just tons of crowding. Laurel Street, even though it is another entrance in and out of Waverly Point, since we only have one currently, all of that parking along that street is going to be quite chaotic, in my opinion, especially with only 1.5 parking spots per unit allowed. Another thing that we point out, we were asked to come with facts to the Planning Commission, and we did. Diane Owen, the president of our HOA, brought up some good ones that I wanted to bring to your attention. So 77% of the population in Gardner is younger than 44 years old. It's 61% in Johnson County. So in many cases, it looks like Gardner is considered to be a stepping stone to bigger things, bigger and better things. People come here. We have tons of multiple family units and housing available. They start off and then they leave and they move to other parts of Johnson County. That's not what I want from my community, but that's what I feel like we continue to build and offer people that are moving to Gardner. So, for example, one of the other statistics she had is owner-occupied homes dropped from 72% to 64%, while renters increased from 21% to 30% in Gardner. So that tells you that this continual multifamily offerings is really increasing the renters in our community, as opposed to them setting down roots in our community. I was speaking recently to a realtor, and she said, you know, I cannot find what my clients want, and that is a single family home for beginners. I can't find a sturdy single-family home in the price range of $200 to $250 for these people to start off in. That's what they're really looking for. So I got on to Reese and Nichols to see kind of what was out there. Currently now there's a home that was built in 1963 that's available for $135,000. Then you move up to a fourplex, which again is multifamily home for $195,000. There's 2 houses available at $225,000, and then it jumps up to $314,000. So we don't have anything available for these starter homes, for these people that we want to come in with their families, with yards, to build gardens, to build memories. All we're offering is multifamily, and I don't know why we continue to do that. The other concerns that I have are the roads that are going to be built. I know that road construction is beginning on Santa Fe there, starting in June is my understanding. And my understanding is going to be one way, east and west, with a turning lane in the middle. I don't understand how that is going to satisfy the needs of this community. The high school is going to continue to grow. You've got 144 additional units. So 288 people possibly, with the retail on top of that. And then all the housing you have to the west there as well, with St. John's Trace and all of that. It just seems like it's going to be too much as far as traffic is concerned for this end of town. My other concern is I have a child at Madison Elementary as well as Pioneer Ridge. Madison Elementary is busting at the seams. We have 600 students there right now. The pods, as many of you may or may not know, were removed last year, and they had to put classrooms within those pods to satisfy the number of kids. My child is in first grade. There are 6 first grade classrooms at Madison right now. It is absolutely busting at the seams. Adding 144 apartment complexes to the Madison area is not going to help. Pioneer Ridge is also getting to capacity as well. There was mentioned before that the lines would not be affected for the school. I did send an email to Pam Stranahan a couple of weeks ago. I didn't get any response. But I will say that they did send something out this last year in 2018-2019 that offered 2 options to the lines for the school district. And I just looked at them before I came up here again, and all housing to the west there of Waverly Street would go to Edgerton. Now with the additional 144 units, it may happen as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Bridges. I live at 314 Laurel, just north of the project site. And I think I've started to resign to the fact that the project probably will go on, and I appreciate the renderings. NSPJ put together a good presentation there. A couple concerns I did want to bring to the council that hopefully y'all might consider. One of them has to do with children getting to either Gardner, Edgerton High, or getting to Madison. Like y'all know, that our subdivision travels north to Madison. Right now, there's not sidewalk infrastructure. I know that this project doesn't have to own all the sidewalk going over to Madison. I understand that. But I also understand that right now, there's not a current plan to add sidewalking along the north side of what's labeled here as 174th Street, but I think it would be Washington Street, out towards Waverly. What I'd like this council to consider is, if and as this development continues on, working with the school district who owns that land in the north to really put in a good sidewalk system on that north side of that street. Because right now, as designed, students that live in the Horseshoe or live in the townhomes just north of the project site would have to cross 4 intersections here. They'd have to cross one here at Laurel. They'd have to cross the multifamily entrance. They have to cross the commercial entrance. Then they have to cross again Washington right at Waverly to head north to Madison. I'd like to consider, like the council to consider adding sidewalking along the north side of Washington, along Waverly, so our students can actually walk to school. Because right now, it's unless you want to cross the field, which great, but we already know that drainage is a problem, right? So something to consider, please. Appreciate that. Also, as previously concerned, the stalls per unit count, 1.5, 1.6 stalls per unit. I do see a concern with that. I think that realistically we're probably going to be higher than that. Where the extra parking happens, whether that be homeowners, visitors, whomever. Right now on the PDP plans, those streets, Laurel and Washington 174th Street, are labeled as public. I don't know if that means that the city then has the ability to add really strict no parking signage, please, on these the non-parking drive lanes. We see that in residences. Right now, it's a problem too in the neighborhood, but on these public streets, if we can get really good signage of no parking and really enforce that, because right now it's a pain twisting in and out, trying to dodge these cars that would be parking on the street that I believe would be, in fact, in this community as well. And last but not least, the further development of Santa Fe Street and Waverly Street. Right now, I'm looking forward to something great. Honestly, right now the 2-lane road, no curbs, it's tough. I don't know the full plans. I appreciate at least in this plan there's some right-hand turn entries that are going to be added. That does come at a loss of some of our neighbors' backyards, and that's unfortunate. I wish that didn't have to happen, but considering street lighting, considering stoplights, stop signage there at Waverly and Santa Fe, Waverly maybe even 174th Street, crossing guards, all the infrastructure that comes with some of the extra roadways, drainage, please. I'd love to see, if not this project, another city project to please address the drainage there along Santa Fe, and then in that school district lot to the north. So I appreciate the time, appreciate y'all hearing our concerns. I had a baby in my arms last time at the planning meeting, so I wasn't able to come up and speak. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Andrew. Thanks.
My name is Diane Owen, and I live at 131 North Pear Street. I am the HOA president of Waverly Point on the Master Homes Association. A lot of what you guys have heard is really what I had written down as well. So the only thing that I really wanted to add to that is that we do appreciate the building and the development here in Gardner. We've been excited about it. I know I have. I've lived in that home for 10 years. And we've been wanting it. We've been waiting for it. We really are excited, and we're excited that they're going to bring some more value, close to us. Originally, we didn't want we had a vision as well. He had a vision, and it didn't work out. Things changed. The economy has changed, and then his plans got changed, and we understand that. We had a vision too, and it got changed several times in the past. And as a neighborhood, over the last 7 to 10 years, our neighbors have come together as a homes association when the builder has literally left us high and dry. We've pulled ourselves from being $12,000 in debt to having $20,000 in the bank. We've done everything for our neighborhood on our own. We've regulated our rules and regulations. We've maintained our pool, which is our biggest asset in our park. And like it was mentioned before, we've had several issues of vandalism, people hopping our fence and breaking that. And every time that happens, that costs us money. We can foresee a lot of the issues that are going to come with this project, and we're ready to tackle them and take them on. As you've heard, the trespassing is an issue for us. The traffic is an issue. The parking is an issue. We can foresee it happening. We know that's not going to stop you guys from approving this and building it anyway. What we're asking is that instead of waiting until it's a problem and then saying, well, the chief of police is going to have to decide to put up a no parking sign, or the school district owns that land, they're going to have to build another sidewalk. Instead of waiting until it's a problem, please, please, please work with us now and help us prepare for some of those issues that we know are going to happen because we've already dealt with it in the past. We've been dealing with it for a long time. So we appreciate your time and your consideration. We're not even arguing the apartment complex at this time, but the pool is I know that a lot of you guys were invited out to see that area. I know I've spoke with a couple of you guys. Hopefully you guys all got a chance to go out there. The pool, we're just asking for that to be moved. We would encourage, like they said, a pet park or a park for the kids to run and play or something like that on that property that can be, you know, they can even gate it off and whatever. But we'd like you guys to work with us and prepare for those things instead of waiting for them to be a problem. So, thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Any more public comment? Seeing none, questions for Larry or staff, and you don't have to get up out of your seat, Larry. I'm not gonna drag you out in front again.
So, real quick, the parking, does that meet our code, the 1.5? And is that including the garage spaces as well, or is that just the open spaces?
Yes, sir, the parking requirements have been met, and actually all the way around, both for commercial and for the residential area. So the parking that you see, but that does include the parking on 174th and Laurel as meeting a part of that parking commitment. And the reason for it on the street, of course, is to offset the interior green space so that there's room area for that.
Any other questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just be honest. To me, it's a personal property rights issue. They own the property. They, should be able to put, if it meets their criteria, they should be able to put it in. And if you buy a house by an open field, it is what it is. And I can tell you, real quick too, on the new homes, the affordable homes, as a realtor, I can tell you that the problem is with the cost of materials, land, and labor, you can't build a house for $140,000 anymore than anybody wants to buy. They're just not big enough. They're less than 1,000 square feet. So that's why builders aren't building them. So we could have all the houses built around here, but they would never get bought. So that's the reality of our story on entry-level homes. So entry-level home now is 200,000 plus in our market.
Unfortunate. So, anybody else? Randy?
I have a couple of items. I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and I want to speak about the meeting itself first. And I appreciated the citizenry that attended the meeting as well. I would suggest that the Planning Commissioners receive some training on etiquette.
Totally agree.
Etiquette, civility, understanding
their role.
The rules. Thank you, sir. The second thing I'd bring up is that Ryan Dink, our city lawyer, provided solid direction during that meeting in the name of seeking due diligence for the new zoning request. And I think that the planning, and I'm not trying to be the armchair quarterback, I was a kicker anyway. But the due diligence that Ryan Dink provided through recommendation was not seized upon, and I think that could have bought some time for both parties to circle the wagons and understand what those opportunities were and fit, form, and function. Getting to the pool, and I appreciated the DeBilbus group talk about pool hours. So it's not going to be heated, so you spoke of the pool opening when it's warm, and Mother Nature, as we see, is fickle right now, and closing when it gets cold. Is that fair? Yes. The question that I had also about the pool is fencing. So you have children that live about 66 feet away, which one of the citizens made clear during the Planning Commission meeting and today. Will there be fencing around the pool to stop little kids from running into the pool, etc.?
Larry's, it's code.
Yes, the commissioner answered the question. There's a pool code that require between a 48-inch and a 60-inch high fence that has vertical pickets that don't allow little feet to step and climb the fence. So that's a requirement.
The same neighborhood pool that's across the next street over has the same type of fencing.
Correct. I just wanted to clarify, and I saw it in the documents. From a sidewalk perspective, Larry, is there a sidewalk that connects the north end of Waverly, the community, to the parking lot of the high school? I know where I live, and Rich and Lee for that matter, in Willow Springs, we have like a little sidewalk cutoff kind of at the back of the north end of our neighborhood at the end of a cul-de-sac, if I'm not mistaken. Is that something that's in place or that can be put in place to address the foot traffic? Yes, sir.
The planned utility, or excuse me, the planned direction for the children would be to, or for any pedestrian traffic, would be to follow any of the sidewalks going from the east to west and then go straight north on the 10-foot wide sidewalk that will be on the east side of Waverly all the way up to Madison. So there is a sidewalk improvement that's part of the Waverly Street improvement. So as we progress through the different street projects, there would be a continuing sidewalk up there. There is no planned sidewalk directly north through the school property from this project, and I don't think there's any, and the HOA people are here, they can tell you, I don't know if there's any direct sidewalks from their existing Waverly Point to the school district or not.
Diane, do you guys have anything like that?
Oh, there is one, yes, I
There's
see
one.
it.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
just
goes up by the
to the
tennis courts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
By the tennis courts, yeah.
Okay, so we've got some options, is all I was
There
trying
are
to point out,
options,
and
yeah,
I
we've
read the
got the
document
neighborhood.
very closely.
Yeah.
You know, I really think we missed the opportunity at the Planning Commission meeting to understand the zoning and the due diligence and fit, form, and function. I know that I visited with several of the citizens that live in Waverly. I went out there. I know that some of the other city councilmen also invested their time and their ear. But I really think that we missed it at the Planning Commission level. And I just urge the mayor to work with staff and that commission through training.
Yeah, I would agree, Randy, I saw the video.
You can say my last name if you'd like.
Oh, okay, Councilman Gorsuch. I saw the video and it was not pretty. I think that we could have handled it. Our commissions, our board could have handled it a little bit better than it happened.
Yeah, I'm not chastising any one commissioner
No,
or
it
commissioner
was
or
just
woman,
overall.
but
It was
just
overall.
generally speaking, yes, sir.
Yeah. I think that there were folks that were trying to search for an answer in good faith, but went about it the wrong way. So, yes.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the argument, of course, and about the pool, but the question before the council is with regard to the zoning.
And
correct?
And the plan development.
And the plan development. So
it's part of the part and parcel.
I don't see any way that we could compel a property owner to move the pool, or to change the number of, as long as it meets code, and as long as there's nothing that violates the comprehensive plan in this plan, which we've been told by our staff and by the Planning Commission that there is not. There's really nothing here in the arguments against it or for moving the pool, nothing here that we can work with. There are no, there's nothing factual. But I am very supportive of the sidewalk on the north side of 174th Street, along with the street parking signage along the north-south, on the eastern edge of Laurel Street. I think that those are kind of no-brainer things that we should do.
Yeah. Well, the 174th thing, we can work with the school district to see what we could do to get a sidewalk on the north end. It would be beneficial not only this project, but also to the folks at Waverly Point.
How does this coincide, if you may, with our streets and trail system?
Well, the trail along Santa Fe, I believe, is an 8-foot sidewalk, correct? Same with
10 foot.
Or 10 foot,
Yeah.
and same with Waverly. So that basically ties in, and I would assume at some point in the future, that'll continue on down
It will.
Santa Fe towards.
It's all the way to Poplar, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. On the Santa Fe Street project, the 10-foot sidewalk will actually exist on the north side of Santa Fe from Waverly intersection all the way east to the Y, where it comes back to the highway.
It's badly needed too.
Yeah, and then
very
once
badly needed.
it does go north up Waverly on the east side of Waverly to the existing trail at Madison, so that circles that, and then of course that ties into the Kill Creek trails that you recently approved for the extension of the trails and access routes up to the northwest. As a continuation of that. So we're trying to address all of these safe routes to schools and sidewalk issues as we get to. And I'm not sure if you remember, and actually the Public Works Department can answer this question easier, but the road and the group that looked at the city committee that looked at the improvements for sidewalks across the city a couple of years ago, the number one was on Moonlight, which you're addressing. The number two was this on Santa Fe, and the number three was, I believe, Waverly and west, if we can go west. So the city is taking action to try and pick up some of these areas where we've not had good sidewalks or any sidewalks to get people in and out of school safely.
That is a big part of what, as far as in my mind, supports this project is getting those sidewalks in and that drainage taken care of. I mean, that's what happens when you put this type of development together. Those things go hand in hand.
Michael, I've got a question. I think I asked of it a month or so ago. What is the projection for lighting, traffic lighting at Santa Fe and Waverly, and then 174th and Waverly?
Currently, I believe there's no signalization or such at 174th and Waverly. Santa Fe and Waverly, I believe, is slated for the future, but certainly with the development, we'll relook at those traffic numbers.
Thank you.
But it is at this time scheduled as future.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, one thing that was mentioned by
Mark,
folks. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. I
You
didn't
okay?
see you. Oh, go on. No, go on.
Okay,
Please.
I mainly just have some comments. I can appreciate the developer can do what he wants with his land. That's his right, and I can appreciate that it's appears to be a very nice development, and I think it's great that he was willing to reduce the size of the clubhouse and provide some land to the residents to try to mitigate these issues. To me, that was him trying to work with them. I can also appreciate a parent trying to put a child to bed with what they believe will be noise right outside their bedroom window. So to me, because the main thing about to this body is whether or not this meets zoning and the requirements for the plan development, which it does, I would encourage the residents and the developer to work through that vegetation and fencing before the final plat to kind of figure out exactly what that's going to be. And maybe there's a little bit more of a win-win there. But overall, the project is a benefit for the area. The sidewalks, definitely the drainage. Waverly and Santa Fe floods all the time when there's any significant amount of rain, and I know because I drive through that intersection every day. If I was living in those homes, would I want that pool right there? Maybe not. But this property overall meets design and looks pretty nice overall. So I will support it.
Yes.
I had a question, or there were some questions about lighting. Can you just briefly, or there were concerns about the lighting. Can you briefly go through that?
The concerns that we had pretty much concerned the lighting in and around the pool and the clubhouse itself, shining what would be maybe away from the clubhouse towards the adjacent property owners. And our current lighting requirements, which we put in place for everyone, currently requires our lights to be focused downward and to be maintained within the property boundary lines. So having a spotlight, for example, on the clubhouse shining straight east would not be allowed. It would be much better to have the lighting basically on the east side coming back to the clubhouse, or pulling straight down from that area, and basically that lighting structure then would be contained within the, I guess you might want to say, the boundaries of the property lines. That same lighting requirement actually also falls on the adjacent property owner. So if there's a floodlight on the back of a porch that's shining out across their backyard and leaves their property, that same rule applies to them. That light would need to be adjusted to be maintained to stay within the property boundaries.
Okay, and I was thinking along the lines of Mark, I think part of what would mitigate some of these concerns would be the vegetation around it, the trees and the design of that. So I think as the project gets to that point, I think that's going to be helpful to mitigate some of the sound and the lighting and everything else along with it. But
another fact, or not facts, excuse me, another thought on the lighting issue is we could certainly, staff has options, as does the architect, to many different types of lighting, and in this case, maybe bollard lighting, which basically is like the lights in our front door and back door here, where the light shines no more than 3 feet tall and straight down, so you have area lighting very low to the ground, which gives you an ambient lighting much higher, but basically eliminates a lot of the overhead lighting that you have. Might be something for them to look at that could be, help in that particular area. I'm sure the architect can review that.
And a lot of times that's more economical anyway. So
I would like to tell Larry, thank you very much for answering all those questions I sent. I went through the code and asked numerous questions, and I appreciate all of your responses.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions, comments?
I just want to clarify my forthcoming vote. Again, I take it back to the Planning Commission. I think that the opportunity was lost at that level versus at the City Council level. And we have to respect the process, but I think we can improve the process.
I agree.
As it comes to citizens' concern, developers' concern, and the overall growth as the Planning Commission oversees.
Thank you, Randy. And I'll kind of piggyback on what you said, but also make a note regarding staff. Staff has been on top of this from day one. They've been working really hard, trying to be proactive with both the developer and the homeowners. And I wanted to give them special credit for this. They've worked through a tough situation, and I think that we're going to come up with a resolution to a lot of these issues. I think that the developer has made a commitment to work through some of those things as the plats get moved through the process, and trying to mitigate as many of the concerns of the neighborhood. I think they want to be a good neighbor, and so as long as we can keep the communication lines open and staff is willing to facilitate, then I think we can bring a really top-notch development, and at the same time keep the community as livable as it is today. And that's the most important thing. We want to increase quality of life for everyone, including the folks that are close by this development. So having said that, I will entertain a motion on new committee recommendation item number 3.
Second.
Motion Moore, second Melton, that we approve ordinance 2606, an ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, and the associated preliminary development plan PDP 1901 for Waverly Plaza. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Hilton?
Yes.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Shute?
Yes. Committee recommendation item number 3 passes. Thank you again to committee members and to the applicant to come out and try to come up with a with a solution to these things, we will move forward and make it happen. Thank you. New business items. We don't have any old business. New business item number 1, consider adopting an ordinance amending chapter 2.05.040 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, entitled Governing Body Rules of Procedure. Amy, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So this one's been about 6 months coming. I'm not going to give you a long presentation because you've already sat through 2 of them. I've incorporated all the changes that you have requested in Governing Body Rules of Procedure. In the packet, you received a red line version of them, a new version of Governing Body Rules of Procedure, and a list of all the changes that have been made. In order to finalize this, the changes do have to be made by ordinance. And then we will have a couple of additional ordinances coming after that to help with the change of removing section 2H, which had to do with the boards and commissions from Governing Body Rules of Procedure.
Do we have any pink left anywhere? I saw it's all used in our. Trying to open the floor for
Yes.
comments or.
Oh, couple of comments? Oh, yeah, sorry. I was busy looking at all this stuff you added. I was looking at your comprehensive work here. Any public comments on new design number 1? Thank you very much for.
You're done. I'm here to help, man.
Yes,
Just grab the gavel next time.
Oh, no, you're not grabbing that gavel. You gotta earn it. Okay, with no public comment coming forward, any questions for Amy or the staff on this? I think she's done a tremendous job again.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah, her work continually amazes me. She's taken a contentious situation in past years and made it very smooth. So I wanted to give you kudos.
Big
on
shoes to
that.
fill over there.
Thank you.
So, yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we will entertain a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we adopt ordinance 2607, ordinance amending chapter 2.05.040 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas, entitled Governing Body Rules of Procedure, and incorporating by reference the Governing Body Rules of Procedure under the provisions of KSA 12-3009 through 12-3012. City Clerk.
Councilman Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk,
Thank you for your hard work, yes.
Councilman Melton.
Yes.
Councilman Moore.
Yes.
Councilman Winters.
Yes.
Mayor, you vote on this as well.
Oh, I do.
Yes.
Okay,
rigged.
I vote yes.
Look at you go.
I know.
Wait till it's on that
Shocked. Ordinance 2607 passes. Thank you again, Amy.
You're done voting for tonight then.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm glad the pressure was too high to bear. New business item number 2. These are all housekeeping items, I'm assuming.
These are all housekeeping items. I'm going to just briefly go through the major change. This change was actually suggested by Councilmember Baldwin. This is removing section 2H. This is the former section 2H from Governing Body Rules of Procedure, which was the selection process for the candidates and going through that. We made some housekeeping changes kind of to keep up with current times, change the nomenclature of some things to make them more consistent with our current practices. One of the things we changed is having them be able, advertising on the city's website and on social media instead of being stuck to advertising in the paper for 2 weeks because of the time more than anything else, because the 2-week period with the paper ends up being over 2 weeks because you have to go from Wednesday to the following, and if you miss the deadline on that, it becomes a very lengthy amount of time and extends your process by quite a bit. The suggestion made by Councilmember Baldwin was if we have a specific number of openings on a board and we have the same or less number of applicants, that the interview team could decide unanimously together to just move forward with those applicants instead of conducting interviews for each of them. So that has been changed in each of these ordinances. You will notice there is not one for the Planning Commission or the Board of Zoning Appeals. Attorney Denk is currently working on those, as those are statutory committees, and the suggestion is to combine those committees as well, so they should be coming forward at the next meeting.
Now, just a question on that combining of the BZA and the Planning Commission. That's done in other cities, correct? I mean,
Yes.
it's to streamline the processes, basically. They would just gavel out one meeting and start another meeting of the same personnel, is that correct?
Absolutely, because they only hold a BZA meeting about every 6 months, and this was a suggestion of staff and our consultant.
Okay, great.
As a practical matter, Mayor, generally, planning commissions will go in and out of BZA meetings in the same way that they will go in and out of a public hearing when the two of them are combined.
Thank you, appreciate it. Charles, nice to see you in the seat. First time, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, without any further, well, actually, is there any public comment on new business item number 2? Thank you, Rich. You know, I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning, so.
Hey, I'm 4:30, man, you ain't got nothing.
Mr. Dunley goes by Chuck, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, Chuck, I'm sorry. Chuck.
Both are fine.
We're gonna get you your due, man, don't worry.
All right.
Not Ryan Dink, that's what we're gonna call you.
All right. Any public comments? Rich?
Public, right, my bad.
Seeing none. Any questions now for Amy?
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Playing along with what the mayor said and what Chuck advised, would there be 2 separate agendas between those bodies?
My understanding is that there would be 2 separate agendas, but don't hold me to that. We can discuss that further when we bring that ordinance forward.
I just pencil it in then.
I think that it's from the purposes of, transparency, we want to have a separate agenda.
That's why I bring it up.
Yeah. Yes, Chuck?
They're often stacked on a single item, on a single document or publication with a separate agenda technically, but to save on paper and to save on publication, when you're publishing them, you can keep them separate online, but on paper you often put them together.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to thank Amy. I gave quite broad strokes on this. The intention was to simplify the process while we have to keep extending over and over and over. And since from my perspective, if we have citizens that want to serve, why are we delaying their ability to do so? So she ran with this and put this together very nicely. So I'd like to definitely give her a shout out for that.
Thank you.
I'm impressed you listened to it.
Well,
every once in a while.
So we can pretty much rapid fire these through, couldn't we? The
Yes.
next 3 agenda items are part of the same package you just mentioned. So we're going to go ahead and start with ordinance 2608. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion,
I'm Melton.
Gregorczyk, second Melton.
Okay.
All right, that we adopt ordinance 2608, an ordinance amending ordinance 2497 of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
All right, 2608 passes. I'll entertain a motion on ordinance 2609.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Moore, that we adopt an ordinance 2609 amending ordinance 2569 of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Now, ordinance 2609 passes. My motion on to ordinance 2610.
So moved. Second.
I'm trying to spread it around.
Motion Baldwin, second Gregorczyk, that we adopt ordinance 2610, an ordinance amending ordinance 2474 of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Winters?
Yes.
Councilman Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilman Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilman Melton?
Yes.
2610 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. We have the best city clerk in Johnson County working for us, and I don't want anybody to tell me different. All right, council updates. Staff have anything for council? I'm going to start with Chief Pruding tonight. All right, city clerk.
Yes, sir, very briefly, Councilman Melton will not be available for the April 1st meeting.
Oh,
so
great.
if anyone else is not going to be available,
Celebrate.
please let us know as soon as possible because we need all the rest of your
Yes.
That's probably a joke on his part.
No, I won't be, I'll be in Cancun, so I won't even be able to call in.
They don't
I
have
wouldn't
phones
call
there?
in.
What? What'd you say? I'm not drinking the water either, so.
All right, Matt Wolf.
Yes, you might have seen in your Friday Minute memo that we were selected by Capers for an audit of our payroll records for 3 years.
Lovely.
And we were one of 3 jurisdictions in this area that were selected, and we were the first one to complete our audit, and the preliminary results was a clean audit. There's no outstanding issues that we have to resolve. I give special recognition to Debbie Goodson, our payroll clerk.
Awesome.
Debbie does the work of 3 people in that office. She's awesome. Anyway, Chuck, city attorney.
Nothing from the city attorney's office.
Oh, I was going to go there. You're supposed to be last. I know, I messed up. Michael Kramer.
Yeah, one thing that we have been talking about for some time is courtesy car for the airport. One of the options that we did explore was potentially taking one of our used vehicles and donating it to the VAA. They considered that and discussed that at a meeting that they had last weekend, and they've decided to not move forward with that due to insurance and liability concerns. And so we will continue to explore options and as we move.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Michael. I suppose VAA's been the ones clamoring for that vehicle, haven't they?
Yeah, it's just it's a burden.
Mm-hmm.
It is a burden.
For whoever.
Yeah.
For whoever. One of the things that I was discussing with David Glider, one of the members of the Airport Advisory Board, is maybe starting a Friends of the Gardner Airport Association or something to that effect that would exist just to take care of that particular need.
Oh.
And it would run on donations.
That's actually a good idea.
So
They also absorb the liability.
Yeah, it would absorb the liability and it would
Yep.
run on donations, and that would be that.
Oh, good.
But nothing's set in stone yet. We're still discussing it.
So you could donate a car such as the one that Michael talked about to the Friends of the Gardner Airport.
Right.
What kind of car was it, Michael?
Some high-powered police cruiser.
Sweet.
And we didn't get into that. We just said, hey, we have a vehicle that we're considering.
I'd drive with that Interceptor, man.
I have actually gotten the privilege to drive an Interceptor police car on a long cross-country trip at an airport. Just some small town, you land in it, and that's what they have left over, so you're driving it. And it's pretty fun. They even had the lights and everything in it.
Don't say more, because it's really important.
You can't turn on the lights. But
Don't impersonate a police officer.
Yeah.
That's a felony, man.
You can't turn them on, but they're there.
Okay. Larry Powell.
I'm having visual problems with that.
Can't unsee that, can you?
I really don't have anything, but I would like to advise the council that we're expecting a commemorative street application probably in the next 60 days from the American Legion for Meadowbrook Circle in honor of a past member for their 100th anniversary. So I don't have all the data yet. I'm just expecting that to come in, and that will be probably the first one that we'll be bringing back to you. So
That's great. Thank you. Parks and Rec, Jason Bruce.
Just real quick, believe it or not, we are starting baseball this weekend. We're hosting our first tournament, if Mother Nature allows it. So Parks guys have been busting it, getting complex going, in hopes that we get one this weekend.
How much was that quickie dry or steady dry that you have that you're going to be able to put out there in case things go south?
We have enough.
You have enough. All right. I'm sure you guys are going to be tremendous out there. Gons Garcia, utilities, nothing. That's good. You guys got a lot of meeting play a couple of meetings ago, so the utility rates. Great work on that, by the way. And I like I appreciate the answers that we got from the inquiries that were sent out on the utility rates. Thank you again also, Laura, for addressing those in an excellent manner. All right, City Administrator, interim.
I still don't have anything.
You still don't have anything, okay. All right, well, we do have one thing on the agenda, and I wanted to make a clarification here. After consultation with the city clerk and city attorney, we are going to go into executive session. We're going to be discussing personnel matters related to non-elected personnel. There will not be any action after the meeting. There will not be a vote at the end of the meeting because by statute we cannot hold a meeting, hold a vote unless it's an emergency meeting to take immediate action out of executive session. So,
Point of order, sir.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to go around the horn with council members' updates and then be able to adjourn
oh my
out of
goodness, I
executive
completely
session?
forgot about council.
I have nothing to report. I'm just
All right, well,
on the
I'll just
behalf
start with
of.
you. You have nothing, right?
No,
Okay.
I don't. Thank you.
Mark Baldwin.
Seeing
My
as
apologies.
what our executive session is related to, I would like to thank Casey Dale and everyone else that participated in the selection committee. That was very helpful, and I know it was a week of a lot of meetings and evaluating those candidates. So since I wasn't able to be there and I had a proxy, I appreciate that to avoid coma. So she did a great job.
All right, great, thank you. Mr. Melton.
So I know some questions came up again about the excess money in our utility fund. Have we got the plans to do something with that? And I mean, how are we gonna address that situation?
Yeah, can we talk about that another time?
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
That could be pretty long.
Yeah, I think it'd be a really good idea, though. Thank you for bringing that up. I think it'd be a really good idea for staff to come forward with some recommendations. I know that we had discussed using PCA to give back some of that money, and we've done that. And we reduced our rates,
Right.
but we still continue to accumulate funds.
Well, no, that was the end of 2018.
Yes,
So
that's correct.
So
What about,
we may need some more.
Yeah, it sounds like staff has done what can be done based off the rate study. So unless we have direction to the staff, I don't know what it is you're asking them
well,
to do.
I'm looking for, I have my ideas.
I know that, so that's what I'm asking you to share with the staff if you would like staff
Okay.
to do something.
Well, I'd like to see if we can explore utilizing a pilot adjustment to be able to fund infrastructure on the east side of I-35.
So that would be earmarked for those
It would be
projects
specifically
along those
earmarked for,
locations?
yes, specifically earmarked for infrastructure. That would be water, wastewater, road network.
What about the refunding the overpayment?
And, well, we are refunding it through the PCA.
Right, so we need to have a breakdown of how that's gonna show up, so.
Oh,
people can
absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's what I would
But there's
like
still,
staff to
if
explore.
you're refunding it, and then we're spending it on the other side of 35, I'm confused.
Well, no, you're not doing, you're doing both. You can do both.
We're not actually refunding anything through the PCA. The PCA is an adjustment based off what it costs us to acquire said power.
Correct.
We haven't thrown in an additional, hey, take off 3 cents across the board for rates. Right? The
thought that we
PCA is
had.
not designed for that.
I thought that we.
Okay, the PCA, it has been negative because of Dogwood and favorable contracts. Matt?
That's pretty much correct. There has been savings there, but that's been passed on automatically. It wasn't anything like specific recently.
Right. It's not like we said
fund balance.
Yeah.
The issue that we had in previous discussions about a refund is that there are folks that have come into this community in the last 3 years. And I don't think it would be equitable to give those folks the same refund that people have been here for 15 years. So.
And that's when we decided to reduce the rates, we took that into account as like how they.
Correct.
Why don't we put this on the agenda and talk about it in an organized
Maybe a work
fashion?
session.
Yeah.
I think it would be a really good idea to have a work session because, understand this, guys, we've got $20 million of investment potentially on the other side of I-35.
Yep.
And we don't have, at this point, a way to pay for it.
Well, then we better take that to the citizens and see if they wanna pay for it. then.
Yeah, from what I just heard, this isn't a utilities question. This is a what's our vision work session for across the interstate
Absolutely.
again, revisiting what we did a year ago.
And that's fine. But right now, it's either a mill levy increase to make it happen, which I don't think anybody on this board wants.
Versus rating the electric fund?
We're
Sure.
not rating. When you're talking about a pilot, and we can have that discussion with folks who understand municipal power, it's common practice to have a pilot used as a fund transfer mechanism.
I think we should move the discussion on to the.
I agree. We've had this argument over and over again.
So let's table it.
We'll have it again.
Yeah, let's table it.
And the fund continues to grow.
Yeah, let's table it.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah. I'm gonna stood up. So
next one.
So the other thing, back to what the mayor and Councilman Gregorczyk said, I tuned into that planning commission meeting, and I think that the training is probably well overdue, because I think there's a lot of folks on a planning commission who don't know their role and what they're supposed to look at. And I was, to be honest, blown away, and I called and apologized to the developers personally for what happened during that meeting. So I think we need to make some serious changes there pretty quick. So
we will. We have an opportunity here with the consolidation of Planning Commission and BZA
right.
to take into account training and other tools to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
So, and then the final thing is, I wanted to thank USD 231 and the Gardner Police Department for doing active shooter training this week, or it was last week, I guess now, at Wheat Ridge. So 3 nights, or 3 days last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got to be a part of it. I seem to be the active shooter whenever they need somebody now. I don't know what that says about me and my qualifications, but twice now I've been selected to be the active shooter, and I do a pretty good job, I guess. So even my oldest daughter got the help on Wednesday, which really kind of threw the officers for a loop. For 2 days, they had heard that I was going to be the shooter, and then we changed it up on them, and to say they were caught off guard was an understatement. So Chief's kids got to be shooters too, so it was a good time. I'm glad even though I don't like that we have to train for that, I'm glad we are being proactive in getting that done, and the guys and gals did fantastic for the problems that were presented to them. So I know that's a tough thing to train on, but they did a great job. So that was all I have. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, I would thank Rich for volunteering for that. I mean, it's an unfortunate period that we live in that we have to train for that, but I couldn't think of a better guy, not the children, to be shot at.
Officers were grinning a lot when they were doing it. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope
there was a lot of people who probably wanted to be in that line.
Yeah. But all kidding aside, I think it's an important training and tool that we reenact and be prepared for that. So thank you to the school resource officers, the police department, et cetera. So thank you. And Rich.
I'd like to piggyback on what Councilman Baldwin said and thank the citizens that took part in the screening committee, specifically Tim Miller, Casey Dale, and Heath Freeman. Of course, we had members of staff there as well. It was a very cross-functional committee, and there were very long evenings for pretty much a solid week that poured over the resumes and went through the in-person and Skype interviews with all of the candidates. It was I thought a very thorough process.
Comprehensive.
Very comprehensive. And I think the council members that were not there were very well represented by their chosen representatives. So yeah, I was very satisfied with what I perceived as a very objective process to arrive at our top 3 candidates, which the community got to meet last week. So that's all I have to say on that. The other thing I was going to also say that I watched the Planning Commission video as well, and I was to say that I was embarrassed by some of the behavior that I saw on behalf of the commission is an understatement. I can't imagine any good excuse for treating a member of the public in that manner that comes before you to seek some kind of relief from some issue, or to ask permission to do with their property what is lawful for them to do with their property. I thought the display was definitely not what I feel represented this body very well at all.
Or the community as a
whole.
whole.
Or the community as a whole. So that's all I'll say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Winters.
Just one thing I received an email last week, I believe it was, about curbs and about the potholes as well, but more so about the curbs. And I don't know if you had a chance to reach out to him or not.
He did. I confirmed with that
Okay.
gentleman, that Michael got back to me.
That's all I had, thank you.
All right.
did not hear back.
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
I wanted,
Yes.
I wanted to add one thing along with the, sorry, with the planning commission statement I just made. I wanted to say that also staff did a phenomenal job through that whole ordeal, sticking with the facts, and I felt like we had more than enough information on this to make a decision tonight. So I appreciate the effort there on behalf of the planning staff.
Oh, yes, planning staff was amazing through this process, and I think that all of the parties involved would agree. So I wanted to emphasize that again. Getting into the city administrator selection process, because there were some questions that were asked, and I wanted to go ahead and address them before we go into executive session. On the 5th of November of last year, we approved a recruitment contract with the League of Kansas Municipalities, their LEAPS program. The total amount of that contract was approximately $11,500. Last search that we did was through a headhunting agency, and it cost approximately $80,000, if I'm not mistaken. It was a lot. It was a lot. On the 1st of February of this year, LKM advertised this throughout in statewide and national publications. They collected resumes, they screened them. They actually went and ranked those candidates using a metric, an objective metric for administrators. The LKM ranking committee consisted of the executive director, Mr. Sartorius, deputy director, the LKM attorney, and the member services coordinator. The metric had 160 points possible, and there were several different tiers. 125 and 144 was well qualified. 145 and 160 was highly qualified. I think we had 2 candidates that scored over 150. Both of them got interviews. We have 48 applicants, 1 internal. 22% were below the score of 105. We only had 4 female applicants, which was disappointing. We can't control who applies, and they were ranked not qualified. That was by LKM, not by us. On the 11th of February, myself, the interim city administrator, and HR manager Alan Abramovitz went through the screened results from LKM. We determined 7 candidates worthy of selection committee interviews. We took the top 9 plus the internal candidate, and then we removed 3 candidates because of research that had been done by our city HR director. Then we convened a selection committee consisting of myself, the council leadership, Heath Freeman, Tim Miller, Casey Deaton, Jason Camus from the Chamber, Greg Martinette from Southwest Johnson County EDC, Bruce Krejci from USD 231, Chief Kirk from Fire District 1, and Laura Gorley. We conducted 7 interviews, provided input. We named 3 finalists. We had that meet and greet last week. We, as a governing body, interviewed the candidates, as well as city staff, leadership, and CA direct reports. So I don't know how much more thorough we could be with this process. I think we've actually been more exhaustive than many bodies have been regarding this process. And I think that the person that has been settled on, I think, has been through a rigorous process. So having said that, we're going to go into executive session. Again, we will not be having action out of the executive session. According to advice from our city attorney, we will engage in contract negotiations with the individual that's achieved by consensus, keeping them confidential. And then we will have the contract ratification and the hiring announcement happen, the approval on the contract announcement happen at the same meeting.
Just real quick, Mayor, I appreciate you
Yes.
going through that for the good of the citizens.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep. And that is also, by the way, to protect the applicant in case
Absolutely.
there's a problem with contract negotiations. You don't want to name somebody and then have things fall through.
No, I don't want to get ahead of our skis.
Exactly. So, having said all that, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Well, you weren't fast enough.
Todd caught me off guard.
Motion second, Winters, that we go into executive session, recess pursuing to KSA 75-4309B1 to discuss personnel matters related to non-elected personnel, beginning at 9:25 p.m. and returning to regular session at 9:45 p.m. All those in favor indicate by saying, and I want to invite Interim City Administrator Gorley in, and the rest of staff, with the exception of the city clerk, can be dismissed on this. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? We are now in recess. we resume regular session. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? We are back in regular session. I will entertain a motion to resume executive session.
So moved.
Motion Moore, second Melton, that we recess into executive session pursuant to all that stuff that I mentioned before. All those in favor?
How much time?
I'm sorry? For 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes, starting at 9:47 and coming back into regular session at 9:57. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, any abstentions? We are back in recess.